So good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been here before, thank you for joining us again. As we like to start our meetings, we like to ground our planning work in the land and labor acknowledgement, which is a reminder that this land exists due to the indigenous stewardship and the labor of forced Africans. As through the help of the Ideas Youth Committee, cultural historians, and stakeholders, we're making sure that this is a process not just about design, but also a plan that reflects the city's full history, creates a space for joy, healing, and a sense of belonging for everyone. So through today's conversation about programming and storytelling, we hope to continue this commitment as part of City Park's short and long-term future. So here we go with the land and labor acknowledgement. We honor the ancestral land of the Atacapa Ishak, Caddo, Chitimacha, Choctaw, Homa, Natchez, Tunica, Biloxi, Bayugula, Washa, Chawasha, Chapatulas, Acopalisa, Point Ocean, and other currently unknown indigenous nations who lived on and cared for this land for over 6,000 years. We also recognize that this land's cultivation, financial growth, and ongoing cultural, historical, and environmental significance was achieved through the exploitation and systemic oppression of Black and Indigenous people of color. Enslaved African people were forced to clear cypress swamps, construct canals, and cultivate sugarcane on the 14 plantations that occupied City Park's current boundaries. We acknowledge their uncredited labor, the injustices they endured, and the generational impacts that persist. As we honor this land's past, we pledge to prioritize cultural sensitivity, environmental stewardship, and equitable partnerships with Indigenous nations and descendants of enslaved communities in all aspects of planning and engagement for City Park's future. Once again, thank you all for being here. I'll pass it over to Rebecca Dietz. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. I'll try to keep this close. Thank you. This is like my security blanket, so I carry it around everywhere with me. Welcome, everyone. All right, show of hands. Who's not attended a City Park community meeting before? Welcome. We're so happy to have you. And for those of you that have been with us the whole way, welcome back. Sincerely, on behalf of City Park and the entire community, what incredible work you all have done. This community has embraced City Park as a collection of shared spaces, and we are planning for its future in the way only New Orleanians can do. Around a table, over a cup of gumbo, talking to each other about your shared experiences, differing experiences, and shaping a park that you love for generations to come. And you've done that. This is an incredible master plan we have to show you today. After nearly 2 years of public engagement, planning, research, and a lot of listening, the City Park Master Plan outlines a thoughtful approach to protecting the foundational elements of the park that we all know and love, while also enhancing the opportunities for the future, enhancing opportunities and access to nature, access to improved recreation, ecological recreation, intentional land management. You'll find all of that in the plan. It also incorporates the needs of our changing community, incorporates voices from people of all ages, all abilities and backgrounds. You all did this work. We have developed a plan for the park that can ensure its vibrancy for the future. And as a steward of the park, and without a hint of patronizing, I'm really proud of y'all. Good job. So today we're going to spend some time together talking about park programming. We're going to show you elements of the plan up close and personal, some beautiful renderings. We'll also talk about next steps, phasing, cost, all of those important things. As we talk about programming today, I want to remind everyone that City Park is committed to being a place that feels welcoming for everyone. I would venture to guess that everyone in here enjoys something unique about the park, and every one of you should feel welcome. Throughout this planning process, we have met with longstanding partners, new partners, focus groups, people who are doing community-led programming in the park, and we're committed to increasing that. We may even have a special appearance later from the Congo Square Preservation Society, which is a new partner for City Park. Again, we've met with a lot of you, and you're doing the important programming work in the park. We value everyone that does that work, and we want to increase it and continue to promote it. So for those of you that are new, we are going to walk a little bit, I'm going to say briefly because we want to get you to the activity, but we're going to walk through how we got here so that you know this has been an iterative process where every meeting has built on the one before it. We also take open comments during the downtime. We've had a survey up. We do pop-up engagement opportunities around town. So this has been an iterative process over time. And we also want to make sure that you all know we've been listening. So many of you might ask, well, what happened between meeting 2 and 3? I said I wanted this, and I never heard from anyone. We have been listening. And in case anyone feels like there are two big elephants in the room, I'm going to address them right now. At the last meeting, we introduced what was a beautiful picture. It was a natural slide in the middle of Couturier Forest. Yeah, we took that out. You're not going to see that. We heard loud and clear that was not something the community was supporting, so that you will not see that in the plan. We do love children, and we love slides, and we understand that they maybe don't belong in the forest. Second, we did show parallel parking on Marconi. We've taken that out as well. I want to clarify though, we are committed to making Marconi safe. Between Harrison Avenue and 610 is filled with kids, families, people trying to pass from one side to the other. It should feel safe. You're in the middle of a park. If you are someone who is always late to work, and you live in an area where you need to use Marconi, I would encourage you to start using Canal or Wisner. You can go a little bit faster. It's not in the middle of a park. But all to say, we are going to do a traffic study as part of this master plan on Marconi to see how we can make that area of the park feel safe for everyone. All right, I can't end without a huge thank you. I'm thanking every single one of you for being here. For any of your friends, colleagues who have been to meetings before, it's been a really important process. I also want to thank team members who made this possible. First, let's all please thank the City Park team that makes the gumbo every time. It's delicious. They serve it with a smile. We wouldn't be here without the City Park employees. If you see someone with a logo, please thank them. They're here because they love the park. Concordia and Hawthorne, who have been our community engagement partners from day one. Amazing work, amazing work. I'm saying this like we're all saying goodbye to each other. We're not. Community engagement does not end when we pass a master plan. Let me be really clear about that. Community engagement begins with a master plan and continues throughout. We have opportunities through design, implementation, grand openings. Every single day, someone walks into the administration building and gives us feedback. So we're not closing down engagement at the end of this meeting. All right, so City Park staff, Concordia, Hawthorne, MVVA, thank you for your hard work, for coming into a city that is very unique. And we are proud of that. And we sit with each other and we eat gumbo and we love our park. So thank you for adjusting to us and helping us build something beautiful. All right, so with all those thank yous, I'm gonna now move through a quick recap of how we got here for anyone who's new or anyone who just needs a refresher. So we started this engagement process 2 years ago. About halfway through the process, we took a pause, felt like, we're not really hearing from as many people as we know, love, and use the park. And we also want to make sure new voices are at the table. So let's pause, enhance the community engagement process, and we created this idea of a gumbo metaphor. New Orleanians love gumbo, they know how it works, and it seemed like a good way to get us through the process. So we started with making groceries, which was to build on all the ideas that we had collected in the first year of the engagement process. Then we moved to stirring the roux, which is a community meeting we held in December. In December, we confirmed some foundational core intentions of this master plan. These are intentions that you've heard about since the beginning, and you should see them weaved throughout the entire plan. Then in January, we were prepping the ingredients. We looked at places within City Park and planning concepts, and we talked to people about diversifying their experiences in City Park. What else would you like to do here? What do you love about what you do now? And then in April, we added the ingredients and put foundational, what's the backbone of City Park that we don't want to lose and we only want to enhance? And we married them with placemaking. What would we like to make better about the places we use and love in the park? And now we're taste testing the gumbo. We put it all together, and we're going to review the plan and make sure that the foundational elements we started with, the areas you told us you wanted improved, revived, or added, are now all coming together appropriately. And we finished with programming. What would you like to do in these new spaces that we're curating? We heard a lot of feedback from the community, and this is a testament to how much people love City Park and how important it is to our city. So these are just a few examples. In the very beginning of the process, not surprising to anyone who uses the park on a daily basis, we heard we'd like more bathrooms, more signage, better lighting, more parking. We'd like the sidewalks to be shady. So we heard kind of basic park amenities. And we said, all right, well, that's super important, but why don't we build that into everything? You should expect that from your park operators. We should be constantly striving to make this a better experience for you day to day. So if we can make it safer, more accessible, have the amenities be more available, let's build that into every new project we do here in the park. And let's start now. You don't need a master plan to tell you that you need some shade and a place to get water. So we asked the community, if I tell you the givens are taken care of, now what would you like to see? Maybe we dream a little bit. And we confirmed the core intentions that I mentioned before. Again, these are the elements that should weave throughout the entire master plan. Safety, welcoming, promoting landscape health, respecting history, having fun, and balancing the park's budget. Make sure that things in the park stay accessible for everyone. This is what we looked at when we did our placemaking exercises. What in the park do we want to improve? What would we like to revive? And what would we like to add? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Gulliver. Thank you all for being here. Gulliver's going to walk you through some really beautiful pictures. It is 1,300 acres, and we should celebrate that and remember that in 15 minutes when you're thinking, will this ever end? It will. It's a huge park, and we're going to go through it piece by piece. So enjoy.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I just want to also echo the sentiment of thank you for your continued interest, participation, and sharing the stories about this park. It's so important for us to hear that, and it's an honor to be able to work on such a unique park and in a unique city and a unique community. So thank you. Last time we spoke, we walked through this very large area park through 6 zones. We walked carefully through ideas, showed you precedents, described things, and looked at maps. Today we get to not furrow our brows as much in terms of trying to add all those things together to understand what it means and look at pictures. So we're going to walk through briefly. We'll go to a blow up of each zone and talk about some of the key things we discussed last time, and then look at what that might feel like. Because this is when you think about programming, is thinking about what do I want to do in these environments. So you need to kind of have a picture of the environment that we're talking about. So Zone 1, what we're working title calling the North Side Woodland Landscapes. And you, of course, know all the constituent pieces of it, such as Katuri Forest, Scout Island, Bird Island, Wisner Tract. But putting them all together was a unique opportunity in this conversation that we're having with you And it was an intense piece of feedback that we heard from the community about this is very dear and to people and cherished as a resource. So, we have this balancing act of how do we, mature what we already love about this nature park, but also add some things that make it more accessible, more things to do in this landscape, and just make it a more interesting landscape in terms of more biodiversity and make it more resilient. So we're going to also centrally talk about the idea that making access to this is important to connect these places. Right now, you go to Katuri Forest, and then you would get in a car and go somewhere else to get to like Wisner Tract. Maybe what this plan put forward is an idea of creating a nexus point where all the paths converge, where you could have this 200-acre area of nature park have an activity hub, a place where all the trails could connect there in the middle at the end of Diagonal Drive, separated from Harrison, where we could create a hub in this place, a place to get water, to have bathrooms, shade, and maybe sponsor other activities. So what's so special about this north side nature landscape is the lagoons. And probably a lot of people already know this, these were not naturally formed. It's such an important part of the history and interesting aspect of this landscape that this is the result of thousands of New Orleanians hand digging cypress swamp and forming these lagoons. And right now they come off as they're beautiful and scenic, but they were intended for so much more. And so that's part of the vision that we've talked about with you all. I'm reimagining an image like this with more moments to access the water, use the water as a recreational resource for boating, create a more interesting habitat at the edges. One of the interesting things about making landscapes we've now can study what's happened over the last 80 years in these water bodies and what's worked and what hasn't. And now we can think about how to restore the lagoon edges to foster all sorts of nesting birds. This is a very important moment on the flyway in North America, and be able to tell the history of this park. Like, this is really important not to forget that this was a made landscape, and be able to talk about the ongoing project that was started in the 1930s with these waterways and cultivating an interest in the nature that's emerging from this and allowing people to really enjoy it. We also know that often it's really, you can't get from this position on the west side of Diagonal to Scout Island, which is where this view is taken from. So we have to facilitate the ability to move more conveniently between Bird Island and Scout Island, Katuri Forest, and make that part of a wonderful place to explore. Another, and you'll notice a series of themes going throughout all of these, because it is about being able to transform large areas of the park to a great benefit in response to the community's comments. That was talking about the water edges. This is looking at kind of trails. Often we see trails with not a lot of shade. We love how rough and tumble. We want to leave some of those footpaths and rougher spots because locals really enjoy that. But we also want to make it more accessible. And we also want to put shade on the paths, enhance the biodiversity of this landscape. There's often just wide patches of just very limited number of species. And it's really important here, of course, to think about wet weather and stormwater. So there are a lot of places that have been very difficult to manage in this park because they inundate with water so easily. It was all cypress swamp at some point. So we think that we can do more service to the area by creating more lowered depressional areas to absorb stormwater, and then plant it in such a way and add boardwalks that these allow new user experiences, shaded, more habitat. And again, signage and such things such as this to tell the story of this landscape seems to be something that people are really excited about in the community. So this idea of understanding this larger northern woodland landscapes. This is obviously not a ground level view. We flew a drone up a couple stories high just to get a view. and understand when these kind of views, you have this tremendous opportunity in the middle of the park to look at 360 degrees and understand all of these woodland landscapes together. So we've proposed, as part of the end of diagonal, what we call the tree house, a kind of open air structure that allows people to take a break from their walks through the woods or disc golf, or if just meeting a friend in the middle of the north side woodland landscapes to have a coffee and watch the birds kind of hop and skip across the tree canopies. And we think this could be a place for park docents to organize tours and historic tours of the park, or also just maybe expanded ideas of programming like camp for kids in City Park, or other educational programs. So we think that shade, the basics givens that Rebecca was talking about of shade, restrooms, and these kind of things would help just ground a baseline of appreciating the park, but we think we can elevate it even more by giving people something really to be proud of, being able to look out across this entire landscape. So we talk about disconnecting Diagonal and Harrison, and this is the piece of pavement that we would be removing. It's had the benefit of a lot of oaks now shading this roadway, and we think this would be an amazing place to bring some activity for kids to enjoy this space. And so we've brought this idea of nature play, which we've done in many parks across the country, to do a play environment that's not about touching plastic or metal slides, but something that gets people to encourages intergenerational interactions, playing with water, sand, climbing on wood structures, places to picnic. And this is really a kind of environment that fosters a lot of activity and enjoyment and education in the community. And we think this would be appropriate not in Katuri Forest, where we guys mentioned that that's all about calm. This is a little bit about more active and family engagement in the middle of this woodland environment, an environment that you don't get a lot of access to in the city. So shifting from that first zone, which was a lot, and a lot of consistent themes that you're going to hear about in other areas, we also want to touch on zone 2, which is the sports complex. This is an essential part of the legacy of this park, because communities near and far come here to use these facilities. The thought here is very much to continue to support that important continued activity with all the programs across the city as much as possible by improving the field conditions, adding some more multi-use fields, improving parking, providing a lot more support. But one of the things we really had a lot of conversations about is, how does this constituency of the park also see other people? Because it's kind of an enclave. The people that use the athletics come and go from here. And you get this kind of landscape, which works very well for the athletic programs that it supports. But we imagine that by adding, again, some of those givens, restrooms, water, shade, suddenly you're allowing a place where with crossings to Scout Island in this picture, you suddenly invite people who are on those woodland hikes to be able to use these facilities, see and watch games that are going on, and feel the activity of the park, and just see a broader cross-section of the people using the park. So we think that's a really important social part of the park, and the program of satisfying that you live in a city and are able to enjoy incredible amenities like this. Another big part of making this focus on the north side of the park is how it connects to the south, because very much it's two separated worlds, and there are obvious reasons for that. 610 and the rail line are big barriers. However, we think around it, there are a lot of areas that are underutilized that could be part of the solution. We think that the best way to cure this connection that's a little bit strained is activity. And we already have some of the pioneers that are there in place. GrowDat and Pan Am are in this area, but we want to add more to encourage youth groups to use this area and be able to glue these two places together. On the south of 610, you see actually huge areas of landscape that are just not used at all. And you see the maintenance corral building, which we've had a couple conversations about before. That is a rundown building and is not the right symbol for activity. So there's already funding in place to renovate that and make that useful to the park. And if we restore the little courtyard with that, it could be a great hub for new programming opportunities. And so that anchored around that and these wonderful oaks sitting in these meadows, we can imagine all sorts of new active sports that are not currently in the park, but would attract whole user groups that have told us in this process that there's no place in the park for them. And so the idea of courts, wheel parks, which is a combination of skateboards, BMX, scooters, something that's really quite a wonderful thing where they celebrate the joy of movement, but then a lot of seating and shaded environments around it, because as much as they are, the younger kids are enjoying this kind of activity, people love to watch this because it's kind of amazing acrobatic work in some ways. Then there's the actual underpass, which of course there's nothing here that says park. This is all about infrastructure and words that are not very much fun to think about. So the transformation idea here is really to first give people choices. Instead of just feel like I'm forced to go under this thing, giving more choices that are accessible, so we can carve the ground around underneath this and create accessible routes to things that say, if you want to go to Pan Am, I'm going to veer to the right, and that's how I'm going to get there. And then signage, always important for giving people some cues about what they want to do next in the park. And then bringing trees into some of these spaces, again, signs that this is a park, in building people's confidence. Yes, I want to move on and see this park I see just beyond. Then this is all solid baseline work to get people to feel like this is part of the park activity and these cues that I just mentioned. But then we want to do something even more interesting. There are ways to connect media, digital media, into the understructure of the highway, and to think about this as part of this wonderful landscape of light that often happens in this park, whether it's celebration of the oaks or cross-programming with NOMA in terms of art, or just it's quite a creative, interesting way to invent a way to safely light this area, but also make a really exciting, iconic place in the city. Okay, so now we've gotten through the passage, and we're looking at just north of that passage, and there's a convergence of several of the lagoons. And what you have today is an area that collects a lot of stormwater regularly, as you can see, a gravel parking lot, and 610 is actually at grade at this position. So you have the sound of the highway quite intensely in this space. So our idea is to cut away some of those areas that tend to get wet and create more holding capacity for stormwater, and use that cut to make some hills, and those hills actually abate sound from the highway. So we can use those materials effectively here, open up the edges of the lagoons, which are kind of overgrown and a little bit impenetrable, with new trails that can take you directly to other parts of the Northside Park, or just occupy the edge of the lagoons. It's one of the most gloriously beautiful parts of the lagoon system, and kind of not part of the park experience yet. So the whole idea of going from the south to the north is this passage from high activity and people engaged in all sorts of great park-like activities into this whole new world where you quickly are presented the world of the lagoons. Now moving south and to the west, along Marconi, we have the Roosevelt Mall landscape. So we have major institutions here: the Children's Museum, the Botanic Garden, the amusement park, Tad Gormley, and a very well-used and loved track and field. At the center of it is the Roosevelt Mall, of course. And while the area is full of kind of large civic structures that hold a lot of activity on occasion, they're jam-packed and there's no way to move between them. So the plan is supporting a lot of new bike trails, roadway diets, and connections that allow people to move from the southern part of the park towards the northern edges of this park. One of those, of course, is also the idea of using the Roosevelt Mall itself for more than what it is today, which is mostly vehicular movement and some pedestrian movements on the sides. This is a wonderful pool of shade from these oaks that line Roosevelt Mall. And we want to see if there's a way to take away a little bit of the parking, but give some reinforcing the health of these trees, and then add a new successional planting so that the shade in this area will be able to take advantage of by future generations, and use that to sponsor seating areas and places for outdoor markets, maybe art displays, so that when walking through the park, there's always something fresh and new. Yesterday, we heard a wonderful idea about a food truck festival. Roosevelt Mall's set up for this. And meanwhile, we're slowing down traffic and allowing passage, across this for bikeways. Okay, on the Wisner side of the park in this area, around Big Lake, Zone 5, this is, again, an area that is right now two important kind of exercise loops that are very much enjoyed by the community. And then a very simple kind of landscape of big trees and lawn. And so this is the poster child of not a lot of shade on your walk around the park. And so the idea here, again, these themes of adding shade, complicating the ground so that it can hold more water at certain locations, and shape the lawns, give shape for event rooms. And then with shade, we can better place benches and facilities to support people spending time, and then create a whole series of rooms that people can find their own place to own a piece of the park. Here we have a drum circle taking one of the glades shaped by this new landscape to be a regular place to meet. And so having the exercise loops still do their thing, people can still do their walks, but now they get to see all sorts of other activities in that process. Now the exercise loop on the northern side, where we even have bigger lawn areas. And again, this is a place where we also get inundations of water that get wet and prevent events from happening. So again, the theme of digging out a little bit of these areas and cultivating water gardens that hold that water, but also shape lawns to keep doing the job of having events. But we just want to strengthen this so that the wet areas are wet and understood as, well, they will get wet. And then the places that are lawns just work better and tend to be drier. And we really imagine that this is paired with addressing lighting in the park and with the new lighting standards, so that after an event, you now have a good, clear cue of how to move from the event to back home. And lastly, the sixth zone at Bayou Metairie. This is, of course, the most iconic landscape of the park. We've talked about just how powerful it is along the Bayou Metairie, that this old growth and the wonderful remnant bayou just is a wonderful way to greet people. And so the theme of entrance and how to move into the rest of the park dominates the recommendations here. So in this case, we're looking at taking Dreyfus, which is pictured here, and at the two ends, on the Dreyfus and Orleans and Dreyfus and Wisner, and kind of removing those parts of the roadway, keeping the middle part that are by Café du Monde. And this is a very wide road and quite a record scratch from the wonderful bayou landscape on the right and a series of parking lots on the left. And we want to build greater continuity for people to move freely and feel like they're still in a park, left to right, but then also finally have a great way to introduce bike trails into the park from the southern end of the park. So Lafitte Greenway can tie into this, and the end of Esplanade can come and tie into this. And it gives you a whole new mental map of how to circulate within the park from this kind of change. And again, successional planting, water gardens that drain into the bayou, and treat the water from the parking lots, which we of course maintain, but we now want to make them really positive experiences, not just barren pieces of asphalt, but integrated with shade and garden edges and boardwalks through these water gardens. And of course, lighting standards, again. This is at the back of NOMA. This is another part of the theme you're hearing about putting a little bit of the roadways on a diet. This is a very confusing moment of a lot of two-way vehicle circulation, loading, parking, bikes, pedestrians. So sometimes you see all of them sitting in the street trying to negotiate one another. And we just want to organize that. We have figured out with our transportation engineers how to get the normal day-to-day flow away from the back side of Noma. It's still part of the front. And we can answer questions about how that works on the plan after this. But the idea is to let this breathe and have a place for bikes to move through the middle of the park, allow people to walk through this and look out over the sculpture garden and create a plaza on that bridge over the sculpture garden where all sorts of new programming could happen in this plaza space, whether it's movies in the park or something else that you might imagine. So this in the foreground is another part of Dreyfus Avenue now on the Wisner side, which if it's not going to be a throughway for cars, we're going to still work the train in all this. Don't worry. The train is such a great part of the story of this park. But let this be a little more pedestrian. We've tucked in a parking garden here that really will help visitorship to both the Bayou, Café du Monde, and Noma. But allow this lawn to be shaped again by more successional planning, water gardens, and being able to place movable lawn seating so people can enjoy the shaded edges of this view to Noma. And lastly, on this theme of that in the master plan that we've talked a lot about is creating some really robust entries for the park. There's so many wonderful things in this park, but sometimes what we understand is there's not a lot telling you how wonderful the park is at the entry. And we're social animals. We need to see activity at the edges of these places to understand what's inside. It's a great invitation. So here we have a really Irby Field that is a conglomeration of roadway infrastructure coming off of Marconi, Orleans, and a field that was once a public pool. It's been filled in for the last 60 years, and we want to return this by dialing back the road. It's still a major roadway entrance to the park, but it's also an entrance for the bike trails that we mentioned just a moment ago. And then we are able to turn this into a real powerful civic plaza where you can turn on water to create a skim, what we call like a mirror pool or an ephemeral water feature with sprayers for kids to play, but then also this wonderful phenomena of reflecting the sky and the water, and let this be the center of a great people watching moment in New Orleans. So people playing actively or taking their shoes off and walking with a friend through the pool, just having a conversation at the end of the day, but then other activities being clustered around this. And we think this is an incredible way to show people just the broad range of people that can enjoy in this park and celebrate what this city is. So that was a lot of before and after images, and we're transitioning towards this activity of think of all of these landscapes and some of these themes we've talked about shaping spaces to do things in the park. And so now we're thinking directly, how do you see yourself using these improved landscapes, things that give you shade and conveniences like water and bathrooms, but now what are we doing here? And we've tried to create more of a sense of this environment. And then what can the Conservancy do to help facilitate that? And there's one last tool to kind of think through this. We've created these 4 categories. And it's just the full range of how people use parks from our perspective. Well, firstly, people do what they want. The parks are for you. And you kind of, one of the wonderful things about parks is people invent how they use it on their own. So let's hear some about that. But, one thing we've obviously learned from spending a couple years here now is the history of this place is so fascinating and it's so deep that this piece of land has so much to talk about. And we can do better than this kind of classic historic marker. We can come up with a way of telling the layered story of history here. And with all these little building renovations, you have existing buildings that don't have any life to them, maybe those are opportunities to exhibit some of that. And then another thing about New Orleans that's just been so impressive is in the calendar year, there are just so many celebrations of culture and festivities that obviously are all over the city, but the park can do more. It can absorb more of that to engage all those activities in the city. And lastly, CPC, the Conservancy, can actually help stimulate activities in some of these new spaces if we hear what you want to do. It can be movies in the park. It can be educational tours. We want to hear from you now. So I'm going to ask George now to speak to how this exercise will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm not George. I'm Rebecca. I missed a few things. Gulliver, thank you. It's a lot to get through. Really impressive work. Two things I wanted to say before we move on to the activity. Councilmember Green, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Really, thank you. Councilmember is on our board of directors as well. Always shows up for the park. A huge champion. Thank you for being here. Also, I just wanted to clarify two things. Number one, please ask questions. All of us, we used to have these big like neon green name tags. Now you're just going to have to find us. But people around the room work for City Park and the design team and Concordia. We're here to answer questions. There are no dumb questions. Someone asked earlier what's happening to Harrison. So I just wanted to clarify that. When we talk about pulling diagonal back, Harrison stays. For any of you who use Harrison as a east-west connector, still there, 100%. The only thing that's going away is the weird circle. I shouldn't call it weird. The circle. You can still get east-west on Harrison. So if that was a question anyone had, I wanted to make sure we got that clear right out the gate. Okay, now it's George.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so now it's y'all's turn to talk briefly after I do my brief presentation. So now we're gonna get to the interactive activity. And so it's really asking that question that Gulliver mentioned, how do you envision using this? So we went over a lot of new ideas, but there's still a lot of existing stuff that's really great. So in the middle of your activity sheet, you have the big old pot of gumbo. It's cooked, it's ready to go. Inside of it, you'll see all of those renderings, all of those views that Gulliver mentioned in there. We also added a few existing spaces, things that already exist in City Park. Now, City Park is huge. There's no way we could have included everything on that sheet. So just because your favorite space is not on there doesn't mean it's not up to discuss. You know, imagine the pot, it's a deep pot. You know, maybe the best stuff is at the bottom, not on the surface. So think about every single thing, every place that you love, that's absolutely up to discuss. And so take your time, review that, what's in there, and we're going to discuss what should take place. So how do you see yourself using these spaces? How do you see your family or your community? Or maybe you just have a good idea that maybe you wouldn't do, but you think it's a great idea that would attract a lot of publicity or something like that. So envision how you would use these spaces. We're also talking short term, so this week, next week, and long term. This is a 20+ year plan. And so think about how all of these new ideas that Gulliver presented, how you might use those spaces. And so when we say how you use them, think about activities, think about programs, think about events that you would like to attend or host. And we really want to encourage everybody to be very, very creative, but also very, very specific. So for instance, if we see a note that says more sports, kind of helpful, but a little too vague for us to really do something with. If you said disc golf tournament in October at the disc golf course, that's really helpful. We can work with that. If you say summer solstice celebration in the new treehouse, that's really helpful for us as well. So think about what do you want to do, where might it take place, and all of these ideas, and when. All right, so specificity is really, really key here. And finally, as Gulliver mentioned, we have these 4 different categories to kind of help with that creativity and specificity. So as you're writing these ideas down, please put them in the different categories we have. So we have the self-driven visitor opportunities, historical markers and storytelling, cultural celebrations and observances, and finally, CPC curated community opportunities. And so just a little lagniappe just to make sure we're getting the brain going. We have some additional questions that might help guide your thought process. So for each of these, maybe for self-driven visitor opportunities, are there parts of the park you'd love to see more of these self-guided opportunities? Historical storytelling, are there specific spots in the park that you feel are meaningful and really deserve recognition? Cultural celebrations, what would make these events feel authentic and respectful in a park setting? So really, really specific, and even explaining why would be helpful for us. And then finally, for a CPC, maybe are there times of year, location? That's all going to be very, very helpful for us. So we'll have about 25 minutes to do this activity, and then we'll have one more brief presentation to kind of set the path forward, how we're going to make all of this happen. All right, so let's get going.
All right, everyone, we'll be wrapping up here in just a few moments. At your table, think about one idea that you all talked about that you'd like to report out to the room. So pick one idea from one of the categories, either self-driven, historical markers, cultural celebrations, or CPC curated events to share out with the room. And we'll go around and add you all to it. Thank you. All right, I have my sous chef George here on my left going around, and we'll be doing a little report out. Is there anyone who would like to start with their report out? Anyone have a great idea at their table that they'd like to share with the room? We'll come around and pick on you if you don't. All right, we got one.
All right, let's hear what this great idea is.
Okay. We had a few ideas that really stood out. All of this new access to the lagoons looks really great. We want to make sure there are more rental opportunities for boats and watercraft, and then also opportunities for people to bring their own watercraft into the park to launch them. Scouting activities came up a lot. There's a long history of scout involvement in the park, and just sort of creating some dedicated activities and opportunities for scouting groups to be engaged with the park is really important to us. Bringing back some festivals, RIP Voodoo, but it'd be great to get something like that back that could be a draw for the whole city. I think those are our biggest ones.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do one or two more. Anyone else have some ideas? All right, we got one right here.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if it has been said in any of the other meetings, but having a welcome center in the park so that anyone who is in the park can come there and get the information that they need on all the amenities that is available in the park. Because we go to different sections of the park, but if we know where things are and what they have, we will go to more areas of the park. That's my
Thank you. All right, let's get one more. Anybody else have a great idea at their table? All right, we got one over here.
Give me 1 second. Hold, please.
Hello, everyone. I am a lifelong member of City Park. I was probably one of the first members, and I have to say one of my favorite early childhood memories of City Park was camping with the Girl Scouts on Scout Island. My mother was my leader. She took me there. I took my Girl Scouts there, and my daughter tried to, and there is no more camping on it. So I know that it has lots of problems to do so, but even to put bathrooms and picnic tables and maybe to allow day camps or something, I think would be very beneficial, especially for people who cannot afford to leave the city and to be able to experience the park in its glory. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my table mates that had to leave. They would like to have a memorial for the Mother's Day bus crash closer to 610. It said it's part of our history and it should not be forgotten. remember those who lost their lives and learning from our shortcomings, seat belts on buses, having a state with better keeping something, I don't know, veer people back to I don't know. They want to have a memorial and, have it talk about bus safety.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all for participating in that. Quickly, I'd love to let Councilmember Green say a few words. I'm so privileged to have him with us.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And I am Councilman Eugene Green, and I represent District D. I'm a member of the City Park Conservancy Board. But I just want to, most importantly, is to say thank you to you all. From where I stand and see the faces here in the middle of the day interested in making this park to be the best that it can be, I'm very impressed by the turnout, but I'm also very impressed by the ideas that have been shared at previous meetings. We ought to feel in New Orleans, in this region, about people the same way about City Park as people feel when they come from other places. City Park has so many resources, so many attractions that it's easy to take for granted. But I'll tell you very honestly, a lot of people from throughout the state of Louisiana and even throughout the nation talk about our city park. And if they were sitting here in this room right now and saw some of these ideas, they would be incredibly enthusiastic, because people actually come into New Orleans and stay overnight to take in City Park. When you think about a museum, a sculpture gardens, when you think about the recreational activities along the water, when you think about Cafe du Monde, if they come in town for a football game, they don't just leave sometimes, they stay here because City Park has so much to offer. So I can just imagine how much more attractive City Park is going to be when all of these enhancements take place. City Park is a subdivision of the state, but I want to make it clear that we work very closely together, the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana, and with leaders such as Rebecca, who are very committed to making this park to be the top attraction in our city. We have a great future working together, Rebecca, and so I appreciate this opportunity. So I just want to close with this by saying what I said at the beginning, those two important words. Thank you all. This turnout, the participation, is the reason that this park is going to be even greater than it is now. Please recognize what a powerful asset this is in our city and how much we as city government appreciate your work and also the work that's being done by the City Park Conservancy to enhance this asset. So let's continue, because this is an example of the fact that New Orleans has tremendous resources. We shouldn't take them for granted. We should all appreciate it, and we are proud of City Park and of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilmember Green. We appreciate your leadership. All right, we're going to move on to a little education. Sorry, we saved it to the end, but you're about to learn a few things. Many people in this room have asked me, how on earth are you going to afford this? It's a really fair question. We're going to go over it. I wish I had a genie in a bottle. I wish I had a major donor with $100 million. I don't have any of that, so we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. But first, I wanted to give y'all a little perspective about your park. We like this statistic. Is City Park a park or a small city? It kind of behaves like both. It is the same size as many small cities in our area, same size as Harahan, same size as the French Quarter. Bigger than Uptown. You all know this better than anyone. This is everything that City Park offers and more. These are just facilities and amenities that we've listed. But we operate a lot of things here in City Park. We also have a pretty robust departmental structure. I worked for the city of New Orleans for a long time. I think we might have more departments than the city. I'm going to check that statistic, but we operate a robust department structure. All of these people are working to make sure that your park is well taken care of. In 2022, we did transfer from a state-run operations model to a nonprofit model. Day-to-day operations of City Park are now managed by City Park Conservancy. One of the primary benefits of this model is allowing City Park to proactively fundraise. We can now apply for grants, foundation grants, things we were never able to do before as a nonprofit. And this reiterates our governance structure. We still are managed by the state. The state owns the assets of City Park. City Park Conservancy runs the park, and we are all responsive to each of you, the public. There is a cooperative endeavor agreement between the two organizations, the City Park Improvement Association, state, and City Park Conservancy, nonprofit. This is how we ensure that the state can hold us accountable to managing your park. And this is an overview of our budget, which is impressive, but also difficult from time to time. We are largely self-funded, 85%. I think it's 86. My finance director is probably in here somewhere. It's 86% self-funded. So when we charge for the botanical garden or we ask you to pay for Celebration in the Oaks, it's all to support our operating budget to keep the park as beautiful and well-maintained as it is today. So we get very little funding from the public. It's kind of an unknown fact that the city, we get a millage from property tax, but we do not get a line item appropriation from the city or the state. Okay, the burning question. How much will a city park plan cost and how long will it take? So I'm going to start with the easy part of that question. It will probably take 20 to 25 years. That should be either encouraging or frustrating, I understand. But the good news is not everything's going to happen tomorrow, but we're also not going to wait to get started. I think a few of us might take a breath at the end of August, and then we're going to get right back on the road towards implementing this master plan. But it will take time. And I'm going to show you in a minute a little bit of an example of some of the elements of this plan that are intended to take time. Restoring native Louisiana habitat does not happen overnight or even in one growing cycle. It happens over time. And so much of this plan focuses on restoring the ecological wonders of this park, that will take time. How much will it cost? We're not exactly sure. We still have cost estimating happening as part of the master plan process. I'm not dodging the question. I'm just telling you we don't have an exact number yet. The cost estimators are going through every element that you see on that map. So you can imagine down to how much does it cost to restore a native Louisiana habitat to how much does it cost to build a new multi-use field? What does a beautiful civic water feature cost to install and operate? So it's a lot. It's an important point of reference that the last master plan for City Park started in 2005, right after Katrina, largely completed by 2020. There was $200 million invested in City Park. That's a big number, and kind of hard to imagine, but when you think about where we were in 2005 after Katrina and where we are now, it's not an unreasonable number to spend on a park that's this beloved and so important to our city. So my expectation is that this plan will cost anywhere from $300 to $400 million. Gasp, right? But I'm not scared of that number at all, and neither is my team. And I would encourage all of you to expect that level of investment in a park that you love. This city, the park, should really expect that. Don't be afraid of it. We can collectively raise our standards for the city and the park and believe that we are worth $400 million worth of investment. You deserve it. Some of you have told me you're here every single day. Imagine if you had to calculate your time. You're here every day investing in this park. So we owe it to you to invest a big dollar amount back. Now, am I going to charge you to get into the park? No. So we're not going to find those kinds of ways to pay for this. But we are looking under every rock. just the way other parks do. Think of any other big urban park you've been to. They source funding from various sources, starting with grant funding, state, national. We have national and federal grant opportunities already available to us. And if you're worried about how fast we're going to go real fast when it comes to trying to collect funding. We're already submitting grant applications that are from $1 million to $10 million to get some of these projects done in the park. We're also going to be looking to national foundations. There are foundations across the country and even the world whose giving principles align directly with what we do here in the park. Ecological restoration, community impact, community programming, environmental education, all of that falls within many pillars of national funders. So we're well matched and well set up to do that now that we're a nonprofit. We will be looking to high net worth individuals who are ready to give to City Park. There haven't been a lot of opportunities to donate a lot of money to City Park, and believe it or not, we have some folks out there in our own community and nationally that have said, how can I make meaningful investment in this treasure you have in City Park? So we're going to be looking to them too. And then people who are here every day. We're going to ask you at the end of this to fill out a pledge card. Alex is going to tell you more about it. To tell us, how can you stay involved with City Park? I told you the engagement does not end here today. So how can you stay involved? One of the ways is become a member. We think about memberships often as a value proposition, which they are. You get discounts on things at City Park, but it's also a way to give back to the park. Every donation counts. Every membership counts. Okay, now moving on to sort of what you can expect from implementation. We are currently wrapping up planning, and as you can see, the stars are where community engagement is heavy. So planning phase, community engagement is heavy. Design phase, there will be more community engagement in design. So as we start to identify specific projects, we will be inviting the community back to tell us, are we getting this right? Do you like what we're designing? Someone asked me earlier, well, where are all of the trails going to be in Wisner? We don't know. So that's what design is for. Design is to tell us, where do people use the trails? Where does it make sense to have them? Design is also things like, what will the tree house look like? That's design. So we're going to come back to you in design. Then there's construction documents, bidding, procurement. You don't want any part of that, so feel free to call me, but I don't think anyone wants to be involved in any of that. Then construction, this is where you get to see things happening, and we'll have plenty of communication along the way. We're not going to shut things down without letting you know, and we are not going to shut down entire parts of the park all at the same time. We recognize for many of you, the majority of you, this is where you come to find peace every single day, so we're not going to take that away in one fell swoop. And this is just an example of a native test plot. When we talk about implementation, we talk about taking small areas of the park to not only test how restoration of land can work, but also to show the public how it works. So like I said before, we're not going to shut down the entire Wisner tract and say we're going to clear cut it, grow a temporary sunflower crop on it, and then poof, we have established native Louisiana landscape. It's going to be done in small doses over time so that you can see its success, we can measure its success, we can train our employees on how to take care of it, and also so we don't take away the place you love all at once. We are looking at test plots pretty quickly. So we are allocating funding to test plots in the park at Doctors Grove, the Festival Grounds, Scout Island. Yes, I got that right. Okay. All right, what does implementation look like? Where are we going to start? The good news is we're going to start in more than one place. So when we hear from you what your priorities are, we're trying to meet them as we also build funding. So we expect to start in this north side woodland zone. Loud and clear, we heard from the public that access to nature and restoration of Louisiana habitat is incredibly important, so that's where we want to start. Design and implementation of new wayfinding and signage. This was probably, I don't want to guess, we'll get data on this, but I'm going to say it right now. One of our top givens was wayfinding, that it's, if you're not in the park every day, it's confusing. You don't exactly know what leads to what. There's a sign at the entrance that says, these are the things that are here, but we don't exactly know where. Some of the signs of our beloved partners are bigger than our signs, so it's a little confusing. So we're gonna start on a wayfinding package, implementing it first on the south side of the park because that's probably where things are gonna kind of stay the same for a little while. But you should see that pretty quickly. Renovation of the maintenance corral, we have funding for this, so that's an exciting improvement you should see probably start at the beginning of 2026, maybe even the fall of 2025. Sidewalk and trail improvements across the park. I mentioned that we have applied for a pretty significant federal grant for sidewalk improvements. This is to improve accessibility and also put sidewalks where we don't have them now. Have any of you been walking in the park on a sidewalk and you reach the dead end of a sidewalk? Yeah, it's a challenge. So we're going to try to fix that with sidewalks improvements in the park. And then I mentioned the native test plots. Okay, and the givens. Where are we implementing the givens? Pretty quickly. These are things you can expect to see in the next year. City Park feels strongly that if we cannot prove to our users and our supporters and our community that we can take care of what we have, why would you trust us to implement a plan of this magnitude? So you should see improved maintenance and infrastructure immediately. We've actually already been doing it. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but these are the things you can expect to see in the next year. Restroom repairs throughout the park. The ones at the Botanical Garden right here are getting renovated. New drinking fountains. There's several drinking fountains in the park that don't work at all. Some leak. So anyway, we're going to fix those. Sidewalk repairs, tree plantings, and meaningful reinvestment in park infrastructure. That is a fancy way to say we're going to repair some sewer lines. Just super exciting. Okay, what's next? We need approval. I've said from the beginning, this is not Rebecca's plan. So I actually need the community and 2 boards to approve this plan. That happens at the end of August. It'll be a really exciting time. And hopefully you all can help us celebrate once the boards pass the master plan. Phasing and implementation, kind of what I just went over. Funding and capital campaign. So I mentioned that we've started applying for grants. We're also going to launch a capital campaign. Probably one bigger than City Park has seen before, but one that is meaningful to the park. And then programming and historical and cultural initiatives. So taking what we've heard throughout the entirety of this planning process, and probably a lot of what many of you wrote down today, is that the history of the park is not something we can capture in a page in a book of a master plan. It is long, it's storied, it kind of depends on who you ask. Everyone has a different version. So we want to collect the history of the park, not just the history of the land, but also the history of the inhabitants, how it's evolved over time, how significant markers in time have impacted the park. So that's a project we're working on going forward. It will result in a program, which is historical markers, storytelling, tours throughout the park. So gathering the information, creating a repository of history of the park, and then turning that into a program that you can see in the park. That's ongoing. Okay, I'm gonna let Alex talk about the pledge card, but I do wanna note that we have the Congo Square Preservation Society here with us today. I mentioned them earlier as a new partner. We're so excited to be partnering with them, and I think they have a treat for us right after Alex tells us about the pledge card. Thank you again for being here.
So, as Rebecca mentioned, before you leave today, I'd like to bring your attention to 2 items that we'd like to collect from you all. So the pledge card here is this great little small sheet. It's our way of knowing how you would like to stay involved in the city park planning process in the next couple phases. So whether that's just telling a friend about City Park, sharing some opportunities for partnership and programming, or volunteering, we'd like to hear how you like to stay involved in City Park in the next phases of implementation. And then additionally, there's an 8.5 by 11 sheet that we always ask you all to fill out before you leave. That is our AAR. It helps us improve on these meetings and help us really communicate a little bit better with you all and make sure that all of the feedback you all are giving us is captured and we're able to apply that to the next round of things. So again, we thank you all for being here. Please don't forget to reconnect with your bodies a little bit, dance with Congo Square Preservation, and it'll be great. Thank you all.